Hello, Black Hills. It's been a while. It's been a couple months since we've had our last podcast. Today, it's nice to be back. We have Mr. Tom Johnson of Elevate Rapid City on. How you doing, Tom?
Great. Good morning. How are you?
Good, man. So the reason why I wanted to have you on during this time is I wanted to get a little more information about what Elevate Rapid City does around here, and some steps we should all take to, get back at work, get in the grind again.
Well, I can certainly tell you what Elevate Rapid City does. I'm not sure I can, serve as an expert on how to get back into the grind, but I know we're grinding. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, like everybody's got to start working financially somehow. It's tough, especially at this time. But yeah, you're not even a local Black Hills guy, but you came here trying to get things going and make us progress. So, which is really awesome. We need more people like that.
I've originally from Wyoming, so I'm not so far away. And I grew up in the central part of Wyoming, between Riverton and Lander, Ethiopia area. So the Wind River Indian Reservation over there. That's kind of where I grew up.
Nice. Yeah.
But I'd spent a lot of time in Wyoming, and I recently was the last couple years in Colorado. And so I think I bring a perspective that might not be, the same that you see, typically in the Black Hills. I think I bring a little bit more of an outside perspective on, some of the things that I've seen work in other places, and some of the things I've seen not work, and maybe trying to blend those all together and hopefully help the Black Hills, because it's a great place.
It is. It's beautiful here. I love it. I saw that you were kind of not comfortable with the wages around here also in the Black Hills, like that people are getting. Kind of sparked that up at a conference or something, didn't you?
Yeah, I sometimes don't know how that's going to be received, honestly. When you walk in and say, "Hey, wait, our wages are too low, and we need to raise them," you can take that a lot of different ways. But I think what I meant was, if you look at all the communities around us. When I say around us, Sioux Falls, Billings, Cheyenne, Denver, Bismarck. You can just see this trend.
Yeah.
We look at all those, and those are our competition. When someone's looking at coming to this area, we're competing with all the surrounding communities, 5 to 6 to 10 hours away, even Minneapolis and Sioux Falls. You look at the wages in those areas, and we're significantly lower. On a per capita basis, we're just significantly lower. 5 to 6,000 per capita. So I think our per capita wage right now in the Rapid City Black Hills area is roughly around 32 to 33,000. And that's just not going to cut it long term. What that will do is it'll continue to create this disparity between those that are making a good living here and those that aren't, and it's going to really increase that gap or that chasm. You look at other communities like a Bismarck, where they have, it's not 32 or 33, it's, more like 38 to 40. They just have higher incomes, which means your economy has a more, an effect that just is more multiplicative, right? And so it also affects your ability to recruit workers here. If they know your wages are depressed or low, it's more, you're a lot less likely to get that talent that you want to bring to the community. So it has a challenging effect in a lot of different ways. But mostly what it means is our citizens here don't have some of the wages that they would like, so that they can afford a home and buy groceries, and have the kind of standard of living that they want. So when folks talk about wages, it's really it's a code for quality of life.
It is,
and so we want to get those wages up, without an increase too big of an increase in the cost of living. So you're trying to get wages to go up and keep that cost of living relatively stable. And then what you're going to find is the community grows and prospers even more. So yes. Low incomes are a real challenge for any community, and we're just unfortunately, for whatever reason, and there's lots of reasons we can talk about why that is, but for whatever reason we're behind on that one particular mark, and we've just got to do better.
Yeah, like getting new companies in, getting more manufacturing. Do you think it begins with college degrees?
There is a significant correlation just statistically between college degrees, and we're talking bachelor's degrees,
Yeah.
and GDP and wages. And so, if you look at, again, just our competition, right now, if we look at Rapid City and the Black Hills, and in this conversation, when I say Rapid City, I'll mean the Black Hills. When I say the Black Hills, I'll mean Rapid City. They're kind of one and the same at this point.
Oh, yeah.
The trade area is certainly the same. You look, the percentage of our workforce that has a bachelor's degree, it's around 17 to 18%. Compare that with a place like Colorado, Denver, Fort Collins area, in which you have significant prosperity and technology companies growing. That's going to be around 26%. So the workforce in areas in which you have a lot of prosperity has, as a percentage, more college degrees. And so it is an issue. And it's something that there's a direct correlation. And, so when you talk to the School of Mines or Oglala or Black Hills State University or Western Dakota Tech, there's this recognition that, increasing the educational levels across the board, whether the associates, bachelor's, master's, is going to have an effect to allow us to have more prosperity, both in terms of incomes, but across the board, a lot of the other markers too.
Yeah, with the future kind of going digital, like in every way, you kind of got to start getting into that coding and learning how apps work and stuff. And even to own a business around here, you need to hire somebody that knows how to build websites and do all that. So it's kind of like those jobs are going to be necessities later on. Like, I think some jobs are going to go out. What was that? It was that Yang guy.
Oh, Andrew Yang.
Yeah. Talking about all the
president,
jobs that are going to be going out, and then new jobs are going to be coming in. So how they're going to try and work with that, like give people, what was it, like $1,000 or something?
Yeah, I think he was advocating universal basic income as a way to sort of mitigate what's going to happen with automation. You look at what's going to come on, and you see this already. You've seen this in the last several years.
Automation's very real. It's coming quick.
Yeah, I mean, it's already here. You walk into a restaurant, right? It used to be where
grocery stores too. Yeah, you get your own groceries.
Get your own groceries. You used to be able to the retail clerk behind in the restaurant or the fast food place would get your soda. Now there's automated. You do your soda machine and you get the automation and everything else. And so things are getting automated. And we look at what's going to be automated in the future. It's those things that are repetitive and mechanical, right? So you're going to see a lot of retail clerks. You're going to see a lot of restaurant workers, those entry-level jobs. And we have a lot of those in the Black Hills, frankly, in the tourism industry. That stuff is going to get automated at some point. So, if you look at what we need to do about it now, we need to start putting resources into education, and not just bachelor's degrees, but in the trades as well. But putting those resources into education, because what's going to happen is those frontline workers that we're right now talking about that are potentially being exposed to COVID-19, those are the same classes of workers that are going to get automated in the next 10 years. You will see, and I can assure you this is going to happen, you will see in the next 10 years grocery stores in which you have an app on your phone and you're going to walk in and it's going to GPS you and it's going to tell you, and you're going to have credits right then, and you're going to go pick up the items you want, and there won't even be a checkout. It's going to know what you're picking up because it's going to have all the inventory through that app. So you'll walk into a grocery store, you'll pick up the stuff, you'll walk out. You won't even go through that process of checking out because it'll already pull those items from your account, and you won't be able to steal either. Because,
I think Amazon's actually...
Yeah, Amazon already does this.
Yeah, they have a store. You go in,
you
put it in the basket, and you leave, and it automatically charges your account whatever you took out of the store. Yeah,
that's right. So you see, we're making a big deal right now about these frontline workers in the grocery stores being, potentially exposed to COVID-19. You won't see those workers in those jobs in the next 10 years. They will not be there. And it's the same with restaurants. You're going to see the same in hospitality, although hospitality is not quite as bad. But you're going to see a lot of that retail and restaurant work being automated, which is all the more reason why we've got to invest in upskilling and education now across the board in the Black Hills. We just absolutely have to. Now, here's the good news. One of the biggest sectors in the Black Hills is healthcare, because we serve as a regional healthcare center. So we're 5 to 6 hours away from any major center, right? So our trade area tends to be around 300 to 500,000 people drawing into our healthcare center in Rapid City. So we're drawing folks from North Dakota, Montana, Nebraska, Wyoming to Rapid City healthcare. Healthcare is one of the sectors that is going to not be as automated as quickly. So it's hard to automate nurses and doctors for a couple reasons. You might have, they already have algorithms right now that allow robot doctors to make diagnosis, remotely.
Oh, nice.
But you're going to still need that bedside manner. People still want to interact with a person. When they see a therapist, they probably don't want to go to a robot therapist or an AI therapist, although there's evidence that they might too. But healthcare is going to resist automation a little more aggressively than some of the other things. So what that means is the Black Hills will have some protection in that our healthcare sector is big and it won't be automated as fast. But across the board, what you're going to see is those things that don't involve creativity and interaction with people will absolutely get automated. It is coming, and I don't mean to scare everybody, but it's going to happen. It's already here.
It will
happen.
Like there's this show on Netflix called Upload, and this guy needed like a therapist, so he got a dog, and it's an actual guy that's talking to him through the dog.
Right.
And it's like, it's easier to like talk to the dog. He's just like tells him his problems and he's petting him and stuff. But stuff like that, it's like, people do nowadays in the future, they do have like dogs for support animals and stuff like that. And it's like we watch these things on TV and we think it's a joke. And then 5 years later, it's a part of everyday life. It's like people are taking their dogs on flights and on restaurants and grocery stores.
You look at that movie, I can't remember, it was with Joaquin Phoenix. I think it was called Her, where he
fell in love with
falls in love with a computer.
iPhone.
With his girlfriend who's on through the phone. You're going to see stuff like that. You're already seeing this in Japan and some of the Asian countries, and where they work so hard, they don't have time for relationships, and so they get this companionship through apps and computers. So you're seeing a lot of that.
Yeah, I think he fell in love with Siri.
She had a nice voice. I know that. But it's coming. I think the questions that I get a lot is, what the heck do we do about it as community and economic development leaders? And, what do you do about this to try to get ahead of this? I mean, you have to recognize first, you have to just accept a certain amount of uncertainty and that you can't predict the future. I mean, one of the things I've learned in 25 years of doing this stuff is you absolutely can't predict the future. You don't know what's coming. But what you can do, and we know this is how you prepare for this.
Unless you're The Simpsons, you can predict the future.
That's probably the only one you can. I mean, you see these futurists out there, even with COVID-19, right? You see these models. This is how many people are going to be infected. This is when it's going to last. We find out those models aren't accurate. Yeah. And I do modeling all the time too in my own job, and I've worked for several organizations that when you do modeling, and there's a lot of variables you put in. There's probabilities, and so you can estimate certain things with probabilities. There's even a book on this called Super Forecasting, and basically the point of this book is it's hard to predict the future. So we don't know what's going to happen. Well, here's what we do know: things are getting automated, and tasks that don't require creativity are going to get automated. So to prepare our workforce, and frankly, anybody that's listening to this podcast, if you're trying to prepare yourself for what's coming, you're going to want to learn how to learn. So, being creative is going to be a currency like gold in the future. And so and we talked about this in education. My last job, I worked for Colorado State University, and we would talk about this all the time. It's not necessarily what you teach somebody in college that matters. It's how you teach them to learn and think, because anymore it's, this is lifelong learning. Everything we do is lifelong learning. 15, 20 years ago, nobody was using some of the apps we have now. So you're going to have to learn new things. You're going to have to think creatively. And so learning how to think and how to learn is as important as anything you actually learn. I mean, I've got 2 degrees, and I can tell you right now that the stuff I learned in those degrees doesn't necessarily apply at all to any of the jobs I've had. But the stuff that I learned in terms of how to think and how to be critical and how to be creative is stuff that I can pull my entire life.
You can evolve yourself I think you have to. Nowadays, with as fast as the future's changing, you have to every 5 years. Like, you have to learn and teach yourself these new things in order to keep up with stuff that's changing.
And you're going to change careers every 3 to 4 years too, as well.
Yeah,
right?
I did. I did radio in 2011, and I never thought I'd get the opportunity to kind of do my own thing. So that, with the future moving forward, and then being able to produce your own stuff, you have to learn how to do it, and then you just do it. And I love it. It's like, that's where the future's going, is more freedom, like towards creating things, as long as you're creative and you know how to learn or teach yourself how to learn things.
Yeah, my fear, honestly, is that we're, again, we talked about this with incomes. There's going to be a whole segment of the population that's going to get left behind if we don't give them those kind of skills.
Yeah.
They will. It's going to get automated out. And this is why you saw Andrew Yang propose universal basic income, is because he sees, this guy's at the forefront of this technology revolution, right? He saw it happen. He sees it's coming. And so what he's saying is there are going to be people that are left behind, and they're the ones without the creativity and the college degrees and just that don't have that training. And what do we do with them? Do we just cast them aside and say, hey, be more creative? Or what do we do about it? And again, I'm not trying to make this a political issue, but the reason he proposed universal basic income, and by the way, universal basic income is an interesting concept. It was supported by Milton Friedman, who is a champion of I think a conservative economist. So Milton Friedman even supports universal basic income. But again, I'm not making political statements. But the reason Yang proposed universal basic income is he sees all this automation happening. He sees that it's going to happen so fast that it's possibly going to leave behind hundreds of thousands of workers that are in those kind of jobs right now, that are working as clerks and in the grocery stores. And he's saying, what the heck do we do about that? What do we do to keep them as part of this economy? And so that's why he proposed it.
Yeah, eventually a large part of the population, those people are going to have to be able to find their place in society also. Like, going to rent movies, like, be able to talk to them about what movies to get and stuff like that. And now, one click, Netflix. You can rent movies on Amazon. You can do anything. Even movie theaters now, they're struggling with getting big name movies.
And I think, you think about movie theaters, and remember Blockbuster? You probably remember going to a Blockbuster.
One of my favorites, yeah. I love going there.
They were hemorrhaging cash. The sky was the limit for them, and they were making so much money back in the day. And then technology overnight, automation, boom, here we are. With movie theaters too, it's interesting. I get this question a lot. What do you think is going to happen to retail in Rapid City and the Black Hills? Is retail going to go away? And they're scared about the Amazon thing. And I tell them, it depends on what you do. You've got to create, people want experiences, right? That's what differentiates you from the Walmarts and the Amazons right now. So yes, can I go online and order
anything you want?
Anything I want?
Yeah.
Absolutely I can. It'll get delivered to my doorstep within 3 or 4 days. Absolutely.
That's the thing, is creating an experience.
Right.
Anybody can own a store. You can come in, buy what you want, and get out. But like, to have an experience, to go in something like that, that's what these people are missing out on. Like record stores, like, when you used to go and buy CDs, listen to music and stuff, and then be like, I like that. You'd be able to talk with other people about similarities about music. And now you just, you got Spotify and iTunes and stuff, and that's it.
But you look at a place like Black Hills Vinyl. I think one of the reasons they're successful is they have this ambiance, and they when you walk in there's an experience that you get when you walk in their store. You get to thumb through the records, and you get to kind of,
Also, because vinyl is like
it's experiential, man.
It is.
It's touch.
Vinyl,
touch
tapes. No, you ain't gonna find a tape store.
Yep, vinyl has that touch to it that you can just feel. That's probably why 8-tracks won't come back either. I remember
CDs. No, CDs won't. But vinyls, I think vinyls found their place in history, and they'll always be there.
That's unfortunate. I have so many heavy metal hair band CDs that I've got collected, but I don't know what to do with those. But,
Poison, Rat.
That's right.
Def Leppard.
yeah, that's right. But there's this experience, right? It is experience. And we're human beings, unfortunately, that this COVID-19 has taken that away from us. The reason we've survived as a species over 2 million years is because we work together and because we're social creatures. And so this COVID thing has kind of pulled us away, and we can't be social. But once this goes past, what you're going to see again is creating this experience. So if you're in retail or if you're in a movie theater right now, you need to create an experience. That's why you're seeing so many of these movie theaters going to, seats that lay back, and they allow you to eat there, and they're combining, sometimes alcohol and movies and food. They understand that the experience of watching a movie I can get on Netflix right now.
Yep.
But the experience of being around people and drinking and having food, that they're trying to create an experience so that they can continue to get revenues. And so you're more likely to go to a movie when you feel like you're going to have an experience versus just watching, the pixels on a screen. So experience matters more than anything else in this kind of thing. And that's so as you think about retail going forward, it's this experience that you're trying to create, which is why you're seeing these. You don't see these malls anymore the way they used to be. Malls now, it used to be in a mall where you'd go in and there's this box and you walk into it and you buy something, and people are competing on price. Mm-hmm. You don't want to compete on price anymore. What you want to do is create an experience for the consumer as they walk in. That's why you're seeing these open air malls in which people they're getting an experience of shopping versus just shopping and competing on price. Because if you're going to compete on price, you're going to lose. That is a game you can't win.
Like, preferably the experience that we're not going for is like, I'll say it, but it's like Zoomies. When you go in, and they're just like, hey, bro, how can I help you? Oh, I'll show you this, I'll show you that. And it's like, you just want to shop. And if you like something, you'll ask a question. And it's nice to have somebody there, but not like over your shoulder the whole time. Like, they have gotten a lot of grief about that all over the United States for being Zoomies and running their business like that, because they do it on commission. So they're just like pushing them to do it. And now it's getting tough.
You see sort of this commission-based sales approach, too. It's dying across the United States in lots of sectors. You see a lot of car dealerships are moving away from commission-based sales. Again, consumers want an experience that they enjoy. So when you get pressured by a salesperson, that's not an enjoyable experience. So again, you can compete on price if you are the lowest, and you can be the lowest. But often in the Black Hills, your ability to be the lowest price is going to be hard when Amazon has scale and they can be national and global, and they can get those items for what they can get them for. So it's hard to compete with the Walmarts and the Amazons and the Targets when you have to do it on price. And so I think as a retailer, you've got to, and we see this in Rapid City, Black Hills, really successful retailers are creating that experience. So here's a good example. You look at Prairie's Edge downtown. When you walk in there, it's not competing on price. When you look at that art, that Native American art, and it's an experience when you walk through that store, and you want to linger and you want to experience all those different things. And they got the Native American art in one section, and they've got the beads and the bookstore. They understand that this is an experience that the consumer is getting when they go through there. And so that's a good example. If they just said, we're going to compete on price and we're going to offer the lowest cost books, they know that that's just a losing proposition.
Yeah, that place is so beautiful. Yeah. Like, I'm afraid to walk in there. It's just like hands down by your side and don't run into anything.
Yeah. I'm sure, you're a celebrity. I'm sure they'd let you do that.
No way. Just so you all know, like, during this COVID-19, we are 6 feet across from the table.
I haven't measured it, but I'm sure you got the measurements right.
I did. I measured it just to make sure. And, I put the leaf in. We got the pop filters on.
I got the hand sanitizer.
Yeah, I got hand sanitizer in the middle of the table with some alcohol wipes.
All right.
For the headphones and stuff and the mic. So when we're done, everything's sanitized. Gotta take that precaution when you're gonna open it back up. And people, it's tough. Like, you want to be safe during this time to open back up, but like money is a way of survival around here, and you have to pay your bills, keep a roof over your head. So a lot of the businesses have been struggling lately, like just staying closed. I see a couple of businesses have already closed their doors. Really sad was La Costa Mexican restaurant closed. And I was like, oh, man.
It's been hard for us, too. When your organization's called Elevate Rapid City.
Yeah.
And when we talk about Elevate Rapid City, we're talking about the whole region, too. So we're talking about the Rapid City region, but that's the name of the organization, Elevate Rapid City. So when your organization is called Elevate Rapid City and you enter a 100-year event a pandemic.
Yeah.
It's creates a real challenge for your organization to do that when, you have to be inside and things are locked down. Again, I think the city here and mostly in South Dakota, we've seen a pretty balanced approach. I don't think the mayor or the governor have ever gone to either extreme, and I think they're trying to use data. But I'll tell you, the hardest thing I've done the last 2 months is trying to walk this middle road. And it's hard. I would go to the city council meetings every couple of weeks, and I would get up, and I knew what my role was going to be when I got in front of city council. And it was always to say basically the same thing, which is, hey, we appreciate you thinking about public safety, but we also want you to know the economic impacts of being closed. And so here are those impacts. So we would talk about the unemployment rate and the job losses and the loss of sales tax. So we would give them the facts, but then we would also encourage them to open Rapid City and the region as fast as possible, as safely as possible, right? So you're trying to walk this middle ground because you're not a medical expert, and you're also trying to advocate for elevating the region. And so I found myself in this really strange position of always trying to be in the middle, encourage business and opening business, but also respecting the medical profession or balance. And it's interesting. I would go to the city council meetings or I would do a newspaper interview, and people would read into my comments whatever perspective they saw. So I would, on both sides, I would get some folks on the far right and who were really conservative would say, hey, you should have told them to open up unrestricted, unfettered, and you should have done that, right? You weren't hard enough on the city council. You should have told them to open right now. Yeah. And then on the other side of the spectrum, you had folks who would say, hey,
we shouldn't open up for
you should have told them not to open up for a couple more months until we had, the curve all the way to zero. So it's interesting. I could say these comments, and depending on their context, they would interpret those comments in different ways. So,
nobody's ever going to be satisfied either side. So somebody's going to hate you somewhere.
That's one of the things you got to learn in these jobs real quick is you can't make everybody happy.
Politically too, like getting into politics, you really got to have a hard shell on you. Mayor, I think he's doing a great job. Like this is new ground for all of them. So it's kind of, you don't get to prep for this stuff through college or anything like that. Or it's just like you just trial and error. You just figure it out, trial and error, and that's it. So
yeah, when I was going to college, I don't remember a class on how to manage through a 100-year event, and a pandemic, right? So there's not a class on this stuff. I think I think the mayor's done a great job. Actually, I think he's tried to balance. Again, he's trying to balance public safety, which is a role and responsibility of government, with the economy and what we need, because he's hurting too, right? He knows that the longer we're closed with those restrictions, it's going to cost him on sales tax, because the government just can't operate in a vacuum. They need sales tax to operate, right? Yep. So he only gets those sales tax through economic activity. So he understands that the economic activity brings revenues to the city through sales tax, which helps the city operate and provide services, roads, and fill potholes and water lines and stuff like that. So he gets that, but he also understands too that there's this balance with public safety. And I think in general he's walked that road down the middle and done a good job. And I think anytime in a crisis we look at, and this is the president on down, I think there's a certain amount of humility that we should bring to it too, because you're making, as a leader, whether again it's the president, the governor, or the mayor, you're trying to make decisions with incomplete information. Yeah. In a world in which we don't know what's going to happen, right? So already the information is imperfect. And so you're trying to make decisions about what's going to happen in the future with information you don't know how much of it's true, and it's imperfect. And so you're really trying to figure out, okay, what's the probability of X, Y, and Z? And you're trying to make, at the end of the day, the best decision for as many people as possible. I've never met, honestly, in my whole career, a politician that went into it and thought, they got up in the morning and they said, how can I screw over, Rapid City today? Like they don't get out of bed thinking that. Everybody, no matter where you are and how you think we should do with this COVID stuff, most people, when you talk to them, they don't get out of bed thinking, how can I screw, the whole town over? Most people are trying to come at it from a perspective of what's best for everybody. And so everybody approaches it from that perspective. I think it's important to recognize that, even if you disagree with somebody on when we should open, how fast we should open, and what, just understanding that, they're trying to do their best too. And they're not trying to hurt the community. They're trying to do what's best.
Yeah. I don't know, a lot of them are blaming social media too, but it's the people that are sharing these things that are like, the fake posts and stuff like that. It's just, it's all opinion. So it's...
and then you're doing this now. I think another thing that I've recognized that's changed in the last 10 years is it used to be where you relied on the media to tell the story of something. Mm-hmm. So often traditionally newspapers would be that, right? So you would, before the era of podcasts, the newspaper would do an article and it would go in the newspaper and it would tell that story, or the TV. Anymore, you're almost in charge of your own narrative. You're telling your own story, right? So podcasts, social media.
Yep.
And so what it creates is a really big responsibility there, because it's not really regulated, that stuff. So when you put something on Twitter or Facebook, it can be untrue or true.
Yeah, you can put whatever kind of perspective you want on it and just spin it however you want.
That's right. And I think it's challenging because we're wired, and it's in our DNA to, when someone says something, we trust it. Because again, over the last 5 million years, we've evolved to be social creatures, and when we meet somebody, we want to trust what they say as fact. And so it's just in our DNA to read something or hear something and believe that it's true because it was said. And so narrative often on social media and just in general conversation, narrative trumps fact. And so it's I think is in an era of social media, just recognizing that you can't really control some of that about yourself. And so you'll see things written about yourself, or you'll get comments. I get them all the time. We see comments on our Facebook page about something that I said or somebody said or written or something, and how it was this way or that way. And I just look at some of that stuff and you're like, wow, I did not say that or think that. I wasn't thinking that at all. So you just have to recognize that you're going to have all this noise.
Oh yeah,
this background noise.
Yep.
And you gotta just continue to do what you were brought here to do, and do what that you're supposed to do. And you've got to continue to go through that path. And it's going to be a tough.
You got to be able to take some shit, man.
Yeah, and you do.
Yeah,
you do. You're going to get it. You're going to take it.
You are.
And if you don't, you're not going to be in this.
It doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah, you're not going to be in this job or this work very long. Whether it's the mayor or the governor and else, if you can't take that, you're going to have some sleepless nights.
I get shit too a lot. About like some of the things that we say on here and talk about, because it's very free.
I think the other thing to recognize too, when you see something on social media, and this is not just us, but anybody, and when you're looking at something on social media and you see a comment, right? Again, because that person commented, you tend, again, it's in our DNA. You tend to look at that comment and you tend to say, well, that must be how everybody feels because someone took the time to write a comment, right? But it's important to recognize that one person wrote a comment doesn't mean that reflects a majority of the people that are listening to your message.
Yeah.
So it's one person, and it's pretty rare when we're feeling good about something, that we're going to write in and say, hey, I really liked your podcast today. Most people go about their lives and they tend not, if something's going well, they tend not to react to something that's going well, right? So it's more likely they're not going to say anything to you.
Yeah.
If they liked your podcast, it's more likely that they're not going to say something. But when we're angry about something is when we're generally going to say something, right? So when you see a comment on social media, especially if it's negative, just recognize that may not represent your larger audience or your larger goals. It may represent just one person. So don't make the mistake of assuming one comment represents the entire group. And I think sometimes just because we read it and it's written, we want to do that. We want to blow that up and it's, oh gosh, people must think this. And the fact is that no, it was one guy, that said that, and you just recognize that it doesn't necessarily mean it's true.
I like that. Yeah. That's so true too. Yeah. Things people don't like or just want to hate somebody gets more of a reaction than doing something good or something somebody likes,
Yeah, when I was a screenwriter for a little while when I was a much younger man, and they said a rule. There was a rule that we had to follow, and it was this: nobody cares about the village of the happy people. And what they meant is conflict is what people care about, right?
Yeah.
So
conflict.
if something's going well and you had a series of great podcasts, people are just going to listen to them and they're going to go about their day. It's only those things that generate conflict and controversy that are going to get, emotions going, which is why you see clickbait. This is why clickbait works it's conflict. And as human beings, we tend to want to watch stories where there are conflict.
Tiger King.
Yeah, Tiger King is a good example.
Carol Baskin.
That's right. Yeah.
He brought it up earlier, not me. I only watched like one episode, man. I couldn't handle it.
I think everybody in this pandemic has had their Tiger King experience.
That's so sad, too. It's such trash, and everybody's all about it.
Hey, when you're sitting there at 8 o'clock and you're done, you're tired for the rest of the day, and you don't have any energy left, what do? It's on. Everybody's watching Tiger King. All right, I guess I'll zombie out on this thing for 20 minutes.
What more of a perfect time to have something so worthless come out on Netflix and then be like #1 in the world? It's like, oh, man.
If you ever wanted a representation of what's wrong with America, it would be, during a pandemic, the most popular thing.
Tiger King.
Documentary. I think it's the most popular documentary of all time now. It's the most watched documentary. So even these really serious documentaries that have been made over the years, they're going to be second fiddle to a guy who keeps exotic tigers.
I just can't. It's everywhere, man. Even like, I don't know, man. Some of the podcasts I've been listening to, they're like, well, we're going to take a break from, talking about this and that. Their whole show, what it's about. And then they just steer right off for like 4 episodes about Tiger King. And it's like, oh, I'm out. Like, I can't do it.
It's so weird. I think that's another thing, too, as human beings. We're wired to be interested in things that are novel or new or kind of weird.
Oh, yeah.
So when you see something like
trend?
that, it's such a weird thing to see a guy in the middle of Oklahoma with big cats shooting guns and, it's a bizarre thing, right? So you just are drawn to it because it's so strange. You can't not watch it.
Especially here in the Black Hills.
Right.
You're just like, I want a tiger. I'm getting a check from the government.
Yeah.
Buy me a cat.
I just can't imagine the folks over at Bear Country, getting that kind of, the kind of attention. Because the folks at Bear Country, I think they try to do it right? So I think, Bear Country's not super strange, and so it's cool. And, it's
everywhere else they're like, they got bears.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
We got mountain lions here.
Yeah.
They're just hanging out in our backyard. Shout out Black Hills Barbershop. Thanks for the shirt. You were telling me earlier, you spoke with Dom.
Yeah, Dom's in downtown Rapid City, and during this crisis, I know he had to close down for a while, and so we had conversations about how could we help him with keep his business going.
He's a young business owner,
guy, got a lot of energy, a lot of passion, and you hear a lot in my profession about having downtown be cool, right, drawing people in, and you look at the events and the concerts that they bring to downtown.
Yeah,
that's cool, but these businesses like Dom's, these little hip kind of businesses, these cool businesses, this kind of retro barber kind of stuff, that's the kind of stuff that's going to be the foundation. You look at the Elks Theater, Black Hills Vinyl, the comic stores, Independent Ale House. You look at all these kind of a little bit strange but cool places, you know?
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that makes your downtown awesome.
Yep.
And so Dom's, barbershop is just this, it's cool.
He's a good fit.
He's a good fit down there, and he's the kind of guy we want to make sure is successful. And I hear he does a pretty darn good haircut too.
He's
a barber in down there.
I tried to do a podcast with him one time when I didn't have before I got the studio. I'm gonna have him in sometime, but it was. He's such an inspiring kid, man. He's so driven, and he's so good at what he does. All of his videos that he posts. I'm a cosmetologist also. I do hair. And he just inspires me again to get back at it.
Oh man, you talk about hair during this COVID-19 stuff. My hair is just getting so unmanageable. So I gotta figure something out there with that hair. So I gotta go see Dom at some point about this thing.
Real quick, I want to talk about there is a relationship that's needs to be fixed with that class, like those classes, like the wealthy and the hardworking, the scraping. It's so brutal honest, like how money changes so much of this whole world.
It can be a lot of different things. I think what we've done in our society is, money represents something, right? So first of all, money's just a thing. Look at a dollar bill. The reason it has value is we all agree that it has value, right? Mm-hmm. So we print it up. The government prints up this money and they put it out there, and they're printing a lot of it, by the way, right now during this crisis. And so we all accept that it has value. So money in our society really is, we think about what it represents. It represents something, and that is it keeps a score, and in our minds, the more you have of it, and we associate it with status, right? So
yeah,
if you, again, I keep going back to evolution here, and I hate to keep doing this, but if you look, again, we've evolved over 5 million years into what we're at now. If you were to look at the two of us, 200,000 years ago, we would have been in tribal bands, and they wouldn't have been any bigger than 150. More likely, they were in the 20s. So we all would have been going into these bands of 20 something, right? And we were in tribal bands. So when you're in these tribal bands, you evolve into being really concerned about your status. I mean, it was a matter of life and death, your status back then, right? So if the tribe ostracized you and kicked you out, it's likely you were going to die, right? So we went from that to now having fireplaces and too much sugar, right? So, but our brains haven't evolved to this new reality. We've only been in this environment for the last, 100 and 200 years, right? So our brains are still evolved to be in that tribal place where status matters. And if someone did something to us, our status was diminished. And it actually meant that our lives were at risk. So you were always concerned about what people thought of you in the tribe, right? So fast forward to now, our tribe is 7 billion, but we still have this mindset that we have to have this status. And so I'll get back to money in a second, but back then status mattered, right? So you were always worried about where you were in the tribe and what your status was. And we evolved to be that way. So you fast forward to now, you might be in a traffic jam and someone cuts you off and it makes you angry and you want to go have road rage on them. Well, what you're doing is you're letting your brain that was evolved from 200,000 years ago and status upset you now. It doesn't matter what that, you don't even know that guy that cut you off, but your brain still is from 200,000 years ago. So it thinks that this guy just cut you off and it's diminishing your status. Now, what we've done in our modern society is money represents that, right? So we make the mistake of using money as status. And so this is what you have to fight against constantly in your life, whether you're wealthy or poor or whatever that even means, is you're always thinking about your status. And often what we do is we assume money represents status. Well, the truth is we don't live in tribal bands anymore.
Yeah.
It's okay. You have enough food. You have friends. You're not going to be ostracized. You're not going to die. Your life expectancy is around 75 years now. It's not 20 years like it used to be. But again, our brains don't know this, right? So you have to fight this animal instinct and this reptilian brain that all this stuff matters. And so I think, as I've matured, I wasn't like this in my 20s, but as I've matured, I've begun to really think about, okay, every time I think about money or status or power or titles, recognize that that's my old reptilian brain that we're all wired to have, wanting status, wanting power, wanting certainty, want to make sure that I have enough food so I don't get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. It's all that stuff that's coming to the forefront, and you've got to this is why I meditate for an hour a day. So every morning I get up at 6 a.m. and I meditate from 6 to 7. Sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more, but on average it's about an hour. And the reason I came to meditation is it allows me to go to that place and reduce my ego and take my reptilian brain and put it into a different place so that I feel more connected to people, I feel more connected to the world, so that when I go out into the world, I don't see, hopefully, on the good days, I don't see that status stuff breaking us apart. I think it's one of the reasons why I hope they chose me for this job, frankly, is that, I grew up a blue-collar guy on an Indian reservation. My dad was a truck driver and a roughneck, and he lost his job numerous times. We had to walk out of our house because it was getting foreclosed on. So, I know what it's like to grow up in poverty and on food stamps. So I hope I understand that perspective of what it's like to be there. And, I'm also come where I've come, and hopefully I can be a positive force for change in the Black Hills and try to really connect groups of people that traditionally haven't really spoken to each other. And so our mission, if you look, we're called Elevate Rapid City.
Yep.
But our mission doesn't often get said. We're here to elevate the Rapid City region for everybody. So, and when we say everyone, we mean everybody. So it's not the good old boys club over the Native American businesses or the retailers over the manufacturers. We're here to elevate the Rapid City region for everybody, which means we've got to think about bringing to the table a lot of people. And so when you hear me give talks about inclusivity and diversity, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not necessarily saying, hey, we've got to have all these benchmarks and have this many, African Americans on our board. It's more around bringing multiple voices to the table so that multiple voices to the table so that the Rapid City region and the Black Hills can be the best it can be for everybody.
Yeah.
Right? So that's really the trick here. And it's hard. I mean, it's a hard job to do given some of the context and history of the Black Hills going all the way back to 1868, right? And the treaty, and you get into some of that context, and you recognize it's even harder here in the Black Hills to do some of that because we have this historical context in which we, depending on which side you're on, you see the Black Hills from, right? So that's hard too.
That's why I said you're a cog, man. You're working like crazy. You're just a gear that keeps turning.
I'm turning. I don't know where I'm going anywhere, but I'm definitely turning.
Eventually, other gears will catch on.
Maybe if I say it enough, some people will start to believe it's true. That's what I hope.
Hey, Elevate Rapid City. So you guys deal with...
what are you asking? What Elevate Rapid City's here to do, and what our whole goal in life is? I mean, you want to use that?
What is Elevate here to do? I'm going to edit all that out.
You look at the history of Elevate Rapid City. Like, we can start there. So
let's do that.
This all I've only been here roughly 6 months, and I keep saying 6 months. I think even though it's 7 or 8, I'm going to keep saying 6 months so I can keep that newcomer status, right? Because then you don't have to be held as accountable if you're always new. I'm kidding there, but Elevate Rapid City's the whole goal was, again, our mission is to elevate the Rapid City region for everybody. So what did we do? We effectively took 3 organizations, and really there's 4. So you've got the Rapid City Area Chamber of Commerce.
That's what I was talking about.
Yep. So you got the Chamber of Commerce, which has been around for 130 years.
Okay.
There's a lot of tradition there. You think about 130 years ago.
Yeah.
I can't even tell you what year that is, but it's a long time. I mean, it goes back a long way. But that's a lot of tradition there.
It's like 1890.
Man, it's a long ways back. So all that tradition of what they've done, and then you've got the Economic Development Partnership, which was the economic development agency here in Rapid City in the Black Hills, and then you've got the Ascent Innovation Center, so the incubator that's attached to the South Dakota School of Mines and Technology. It's a 40,000 square foot incubator. So you basically have got this entrepreneurship and innovation organization. You got the Chamber of Commerce, which has traditionally done networking and leadership and mixers and that kind of stuff and promoted the area. And then you've got the Economic Development Group, which has been traditionally trying to bring jobs and create jobs. So, and then finally, we've got one other partnership. We've got the South Dakota Ellsworth Development Authority, which is known as SEDETA. Well, we call them Ellsworth Development Authority. So you got those 4 organizations all coming together. The 3 organizations, Ascent, the Chamber, so the Innovation Group, the Chamber, and the Economic Development Group, they all came together into one organization. And then the Ellsworth Development Authority is off there with a dotted line, and they're also working with us, and we're supporting them as well. So you've got 4 organizations coming together. 3 of them are literally being merged together with staffs and finances and missions, and they've got SEDETA over there. So we're supporting a big deal in the area, both with respect to community development, economic development, downtown development, the base, innovation, entrepreneurship, workforce and talent attraction, small business, business advocacy, leadership, infrastructure, recruiting.
That's quite a bit.
Existing, this is all what we're tasked with, right? Yeah. So we've got to do a lot of stuff with the resources we've been given and the 3 organizations. So when they hired me, they said, hey, come and merge these organizations together, get this plan going, get us, get all the staffs and the cultures put together, and then start going in the right direction. So we're, I think, on the final stages of getting the org charts where we want them to go so that we can start doing the program of work, which again is going to really, we've got 5 pillars that we're going to focus on. And again, they're economic development, small business, which are your typical Main Street and retail, Native American businesses, agriculture, et cetera. We've got workforce and talent attraction. We've got business advocacy, and then we've got innovation and entrepreneurship. And then we put the Ellsworth Development Authority over there. It's really 6 pillars. We're doing all those things across the board. So our goals before COVID-19 was in 5 years.
Changed everything.
Yeah, it did. Our goals were pretty big. We were going to try to raise, we talked about wages earlier. We're going to try to raise income levels by 15% in 5 years. We're going to try to create 4,000 new jobs in the area in the next 5 years, increase capital investment by $130 million. That was all pre-COVID-19. Now, where do we go from here once this hits and the recession? Will we still be able to create those 4,000 jobs? That's going to be interesting to see because we've never had this happen in 100 years. So I'm not sure. I think we're going to keep those goals, frankly, because I think we want to have big goals because it drives us, gets us up every day, makes us try to grind, like you said.
Plan A to Plan B.
We're still going to grind. We still have to grind. So I think we still want to keep those goals. So regardless of what happens with COVID-19. So as long as we get out of this recovery and we start going back where we were at, I have a feeling we're going to hopefully get there. But we're going to try like hell, man. We're going to really grind, like you said, to get there.
Trying to create more jobs after all this also is going to help out so much of the community around here. So that's great. And
we've got a responsibility not just for the manufacturing stuff. So, we've got a list of manufacturers we're trying to recruit right now. So, and we're trying to
bring business in.
Yeah, we're trying to, we've got a list of about 10 prospects right now that are actively looking at the area.
Good.
So, we do that. We do business recruitment, but we also have responsibility to help the workforce here, right? So that includes entry-level workers. What kind of skills do they need? How do we fill the nursing shortage that exists? This is one thing I've spoken on a lot. We spoke about the entry-level wages here being low.
The nurses' wages also, yeah.
And again, going back to the Native American issue for a moment, I think the two relate. If you look at the trades, whether it's carpenters or welders, and nursing as well, you look at the population that is Native American in the Black Hills, one could argue it's anywhere from 10 to 25%. So I've heard arguments that it's 25%, it's undercounted. I've heard arguments that it's about 10%. Mm-hmm. Regardless of where you feel the Native American population is, that's a significant chunk of population.
Yeah.
But if you look at the percentage of nurses or welders or carpenters that are native, it's only 2 to 3%, sometimes 4%. So somehow what's happening is the workforce is here and they exist and they're part of the population at this level, maybe even this level, but yet those wages that pay the most in the area, they represent this sliver. So we have a moral responsibility and a duty to try to bridge that gap. So it's going to be ultimately easier to train that existing workforce is here to fill those jobs than it is to try to bring nurses from somewhere else. So you probably had this experience where you've been in the healthcare system in Rapid City where your nurse may not be from the Rapid City area. Right. It's because they had to bring them, these traveling nurses, to the area because they can't fill those jobs. Well, part of what we can do, hopefully, if we're on our best day, is to try to get more Native Americans into those fields and train them so that it raises their wages, but it also fills these high occupation demands. So it's not just about recruiting companies. It's about workforce. There's a lot. This is a really complex thing. Economic development and economies, they're so complex. They have so many different variables. You can't just have focus on one variable without affecting another variable.
Right.
Air service. We haven't even talked about air service today. Air service is a big part of that. So there's a lot of things that, we try to affect on this spectrum to do this thing called economic development. So it's a big deal.
Another thing about Elevate Rapid City, with businesses around here, they can invest in you guys, right?
Yeah.
So how would a business actually go about doing that?
Well, you could certainly contact me, but we do have our small business and investor relations director, Brandis Knudsen, is the guy that handles that for us. And so, you can always ask for Brandis. You can ask for any of us. You can just call Elevate Rapid City. We have several tiers of investments for businesses. So, typical small mom and pop business, I think on average those are around $475, $500 annual investments. But it goes up all the way to some businesses are investing, upwards of $50,000 a year. So it really runs the gamut from small, very, very small, to very, very large. So we represent, I think we represent around 1,200 businesses in the Rapid City region. So it's a big chunk of businesses, and so you have a lot of different perspectives in that spectrum. Most of the folks that are on the lower spectrum in terms of their investment level, they really want to get involved.
Yeah.
So they'll serve and volunteer. They really want to get involved. You see the businesses that are investing the $50,000 or $60,000 a year. They really want us to do things like change the economic climate and recruit companies. And so we have to represent that entire spectrum of businesses, which is why it's so hard for me to get up in front of City Council and say the stuff I do, because I have to balance all those 1,200 perspectives all at once.
Because you are affecting those businesses too.
Yeah, everything you say.
You're representing them, and then you're going to make one of the businesses mad that are invested in you guys. And that's got to be tough, man.
Well, even the salary thing, like think about this. I've had this happen in my career where you bring in a company and let's say they pay $25 an hour.
Okay.
Which is, in this area, it'd be a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
And there are all those companies out there. So you bring them in, right? And so let's say they hire 50, 60 people. I've had businesses in my career before who have come to me after we've recruited a company like that. And they'd say, and these are businesses that invested in our mission. They would say to me, well, why did you do that? And you'd say, well, that creates jobs and it raises incomes. And they said, yeah, but it caused me to lose people because I was paying those guys $11 an hour or $12 an hour. Mm-hmm. So they left my company to go to the $23 an hour job. And now I don't have them at 12. So why did you recruit that company, right? So even when you raise income levels, you can affect a business that's on this spectrum, and they get upset because you just took away one of their workers who was making 12 and now they're making 25, right? So it's everything you do has an effect somewhere else. There isn't a way that you don't have an effect. And so you'd think, oh God, why would this person be upset? Because it's helping the community. Well, the reason they're upset is that, yes, it's helping the larger community, but it costs them, that worker, right? Yeah. So you always have to be cognizant of what you're trying to do. It's going to affect somebody here over here.
It's that greed that they want all that money. They don't want to pay anybody. They're just like, I want them to do this for this wage that was good 20 years ago, not now. We're not going to pay anymore. And then,
you look at one of the reasons I think why the wages are a little bit lower here. There's some economists would argue when you're in a tourism-based economy and you've got these entry-level workers, that's going to depress wages because you have this tourism hospitality wage where it's more entry-level, right? So that as a whole, if you look at statistics, it brings down that average wage. Mm-hmm. But also you think about it, again, Rapid City is about 5 to 6 hours away from Denver. So it's 6 hours away from Denver. It's 5 hours away from Sioux Falls. It's 5 hours away from Billings. 10 hours from Minneapolis. It's 9 hours from 10 hours to Kansas City or Omaha. So what that does is it's an island, and so you don't have to compete in that island for wages, right? So because it's an island of itself, so you can pay wages that are not necessarily competitive with the Denver because you're 6 hours away.
We're in a chokehold. Basically.
A little bit. I think what you see though is if on the front. So when I was just in Colorado, you would see businesses all the way from Fort Collins down to Pueblo. That's a market in which you have to compete for the labor force all the way up and down the Front Range. Mm-hmm. So you couldn't necessarily pay somebody $13 an hour because you were competing with other businesses for wages up here that are maybe paying 18, that might be 2 or 3 hours away from you. So that's an environment in which you have this big competition for wages, which allows for the workers' wages to be higher. Here in Rapid City, I don't even know that I would say it's necessarily greed as much as it's a island in which the competition for workforce is not with Sioux Falls or with Denver or with Billings. If we had to compete outside of our island with Bismarck, with Sioux Falls, with Denver, with Billings, those wages would probably rise because those workers could go someplace else for those jobs. So it creates an artificial market because you're on an island in which the wages can be what they were 10 years ago because we have not had to change and compete for those wages with other workforces. So it's a little bit more related to our isolation sometimes than it may even be about the greed.
Yeah, we have to import a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
It'd be like if we got an Amazon here, if Amazon actually opened up like a warehouse or something, then Walmart would be competing their wages with Amazon's, and then they would probably be losing some workers, and they'd be like, oh, now there's an Amazon, now we're going to be losing our workers because they stuck that.
And by the way, that will happen at some point.
Will.
Amazon will open a warehouse in this area.
Oh,
so it is coming. It's probably going to come within the next, my guess is the next 5 years. So in the next 60 months, you'll see something like that.
Awesome.
But what'll happen? So this is a conversation that is good to have right now, because I've been on the phone with before COVID-19 happened. I was on the phone with Costco.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Costco.
Yeah, nice. And so saying, hey, Rapid City's a good area for you to look at. You're in Bismarck already. Bismarck has a lower population than us, so you should come to Rapid City. And so you look at. They said, no, we're not really ready to pull the trigger in Rapid City because the incomes are lower.
Yeah.
So the incomes are higher in Bismarck right now, which means that people have more to spend on goods and services. So they'd be more likely to be in Bismarck because the wages are higher and people can spend more money. So we have to raise income levels to attract a Costco so that more people will spend money here. But the reason Costco is an interesting retailer is, again, this is pre-COVID-19, but they pay their retail clerks above $20 an hour, and they offer full benefits. So if you were to bring a Costco, and like you said, an Amazon into the community, again, everything has an effect, right?
Yeah.
So let's say whether it's an Amazon or a Costco, you bring a company that averages $20 an hour. What that's going to do is now you've injected this company in. Now this company that was paying 14 is going to have to compete now with those wages, and it's going to raise wages across the board because there's a new player in town who pays this, and now competition is going to have to go up like this. So absolutely, it would probably cause that. But companies also, when they look at your area, they look at that average prevailing wage, and some of them say, you know what, maybe I should come to Rapid City because I don't have to pay as much for that workforce, right?
Yeah.
So it goes the other direction too.
It does. Yeah, it's definitely going to change in the next 5 years with the businesses coming in and stuff like that. So that's going to be interesting to watch also, and sit on the sidelines and have these discussions about it. And
I mean, I can see a scenario in which and Elevate Rapid City are put in a place like, hey, we should recruit this Amazon warehouse because it'll be 200 jobs, and they'll pay, I don't know, again, they could pay 15, 20 bucks an hour. So they'll say, hey, that's a good thing. It's going to create new jobs. But then I'm sure we will also get pressure from the other existing retailers saying, hey, don't bring them here because that's going to hurt our retail business, right? So there's these trade-offs that you have to look at.
That's the problem that we have, too, around here is they try and keep those businesses out of here. It's that chokehold that they have on us that the big manufacturing companies just aren't here. It's Sioux Falls. So that's why they are progressive more, Sioux Falls, rather than Rapid City.
Yeah, the manufacturing is tough in Rapid City, too, because, again, you look at our proximity market. So if you look at what a manufacturer really wants, they want a workforce, number one. Proximity to market is always number two. So workforce is the most important thing, then proximity to market. So if you're 6 hours, again, this is Rapid City, if you're 6 hours away from any major market, so Denver's our major market that we would have more consumers. So think about this. You're a manufacturer in Rapid City. You're getting your raw materials into Rapid City, which can be more costly because you're 6 hours away. So you got to ship those raw materials from a farther point. Mm-hmm. So it's going to cost you more. You manufacture the product, and then you've got to ship even farther to get to your customers because they're in Denver and Las Vegas and Los Angeles. That shipping cost is higher too, and so this is why it's a challenge. This is why manufacturing has not had a big a foothold as it has in Sioux Falls, because Sioux Falls is in proximity to larger major markets like Minneapolis, Kansas City, Omaha. Rapid City's proximity to market is 10 hours away from Minneapolis versus 3. It's 6 hours away from Denver. If you look even at other markets like Seattle or Salt Lake or Los Angeles, even farther away. So our isolation causes us to have an economy which is it's really self-sustaining, which is good, but it's also a challenge because we're isolated in that we can't find what we need in terms of the manufacturing and the raw materials to then go to market. And so our proximity to markets can also hurt us as well from the manufacturing. And we've got to fix that. It's all about workers, though. At the end of the day, the next wave in our economy isn't going to be necessarily about production. It's going to be about workforce. And so if you look at the Black Hills, the thing we do absolutely have over Sioux Falls, absolutely have over Bismarck, is our quality of life. You can't replicate the Black Hills. So Sioux Falls can spend lots of money on infrastructure in their downtown. We can too. So we can catch up with them in terms of what we invest in our infrastructure, but no one will ever be able to recreate the Black Hills. You just can't build that from scratch, right?
Right.
So we do have that quality of life, and I think it's a matter of time for that workforce to recognize that. And you've already seen that. You're seeing people from Portland, from Raleigh, from Denver already starting to move to the Black Hills because they're recognizing that it has world-class mountain biking and hiking, and it's got amazing, beer pubs here, and it's got, there's some amazing downtown, some quirky, cool stuff like the barbershops and the beer pubs and the cool little theaters and the Black Hills Vinyl. We've got some of those things. So we've got world-class mountain biking, hiking, cool things that happen. That workforce is starting to see this. So you're already starting to see a workforce trickle in that's recognizing that these outdoor amenities and the amenities here are as world-class as you'll see in the United States.
Well, Tom, thanks for being here. Thanks for your insight on everything. Thanks for elaborating more on Elevate Rapid City, because I tried to read up on it and understand what you guys were actually doing here. All I read was basically that people were investing in Elevate Rapid City, and I knew nothing about it.
Right.
But then I actually talked with Brandis, and he started explaining to me about how you guys were actually trying to raise wages, find new jobs and stuff like that, which is exactly what the Black Hills needs.
If you think about, at the end of the day, you could talk about our mission statement and all the different, contexts and these organizations coming together and all stuff. I mean, at the end of the day, you can throw all that aside and say, okay, what's Elevate Rapid City here to do? You just look at the name, right? Just elevate Rapid City, elevate the Black Hills, elevate the region, whether it's Box Elder or Spearfish or Rapid City. Elevating means a lot of things to a lot of people. And so what that means is we've got to do a lot of things. So workforce, innovation, small business, economic development, community development, advocacy, the base, Native American wages, all the stuff that you would think of. How do you elevate a community? How do you elevate a community for everybody? That's the kind of stuff we've got to focus on. So it's a big, wide mission that encompasses not just job creation and creating jobs and bringing companies to town, but also helping that workforce get the skills they need to be successful when this automation comes, like we talked about before. That's what it is. So the mission and what we do is baked into the name. Elevate Rapid City, elevate the Black Hills. That is what we're trying to do. When you think about what it means to elevate a region,
I do want to say also, great job on creating that Facebook page that helped small business get out there, how they were evolving in this situation with COVID, like restaurants opening up and doing curbside and stuff like that. Good job.
I'd have to wish I could take credit for that, but I think we brought our staff together, and our communications director, Shiloh Francis, and our events manager, Rachel Day. They got together, and we all got together and said, okay, we're all going to have to close up. We're all have to be quarantined. People are going to be socially distant. What do we do about that? The Chamber was known, and Elevate Rapid City was known for holding these mixers and events. Well, we could no longer do that anymore. Mm-hmm. So we thought, what can we do to continue to elevate the business community? Well, we know they can do curbside, so let's promote the heck out of that. And we went from 0 members on that Facebook page to within a month and a half having 14,000. And so you just will go from 0 to 14,000 in 1.5 months. You can see that there was an appetite for that. We've had some businesses tell us, hey, that was the thing that kept us open during this time. And so, we're going to continue to do more of that kind of stuff. It's for us. It's always, there's this book out on the tech community called Day One. It's always day. I think it's called always Day One. And we've got to think more about that. About how can we always think about innovating? How can we always never be satisfied? How can we always it's always day one at Elevate Rapid City. What's new that we can be doing? What can we be trying? We're going to make mistakes. I know we're going to make mistakes. I know I'm going to put my foot in my mouth. Heck, I'm probably putting my foot in my mouth on this podcast. I'm sure I'm going to hear from some investor saying, hey, you shouldn't have said this, or you shouldn't have talked about Tiger King or something. I don't know, but you're going to hear, we're going to hear that stuff. But, we just got to keep pushing, got to keep trying. You don't want, and this goes for everybody. It goes for you too, right? I think you don't want to get at the end to the end of your life and think, man, I should have tried a little bit harder, or I wish I would have laid it on the line a little bit more that day. And every day when you put your head on the pillow at the end of the night, you want to ask yourself, did I give everybody and everything all I had today? If you didn't, you probably should have. I mean, you don't want to go out of this life having not given it every single thing you can, whether it's your relationship, your job, your personal life. You've got to lay it out there, because you don't grow by just standing still. You're not going to realize your full potential unless you put pressure on yourself. You don't get diamonds without pressure, and you got to put that on yourself. You got to make yourself uncomfortable. You got to get out there and push yourself. You got to be willing to fail and learn. And so I think we're trying to inject that kind of culture into this organization, and I know we've got it. So when you talk about this curbside pickup and I think you're talking about the Rapid City to Go Facebook page. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of thing we were trying to do with that, is like, we've got to get up right now and do something, try something, be something. It might fail, but in that case, I think it was pretty successful.
Good job, man.
Thanks.
I love what you're doing. That is a perfect place to end.
Okay.
We hope to have you back again.
Yeah,
and
anytime.
I really do hope, everything prospers here in the Black Hills. Like, you guys are doing a great job. Thanks.
And feel free to bring on several staff members. I know you had Brandis on, but we've got a lot of interesting staff members at Elevate Rapid City that have definitely interesting stories of what they do, and we're happy to supply them if you need them to.
Point in my direction.
Right.
How can they contact you guys if they're interested?
Fastest way to get a hold of us on any of these things, where you want to see our business resource page on COVID-19, some of the virtual trainings we're doing, this Rapid City to Go page, our loan programs, everything we're doing, just go to elevaterapidcity.com. You'll see a page on resources. You'll see a page on investing. You'll see a page on some of the stuff we're doing. So again, elevaterapidcity.com is the fastest way to get a hold of us. You can send us an email there too, and it'll get right to me, and we'll go from there.
All righty.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here, Tom.
All right, man. Take care.
Take care of Black Hills.
All right.